February 3rd, 2021, and it is 12:03 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually due to COVID-19 to allow social distancing and protect the public health. As we continue our efforts in meeting remotely, we ask all commissioners and guests to mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using this call-in number, to unmute, you'll need to do a *6 on your phone. Also, prior to speaking, please announce who you are to identify yourself. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We ask that you only use the chat function to request to speak or to announce that you are leaving the meeting so that we can track our quorum. Also, in order to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio, not by using the chat function. So now we will have the roll call. I will ask Vanessa Gonzalez to conduct roll call for us.
Good afternoon. Michael Edmonds.
Present.
Olga Flores.
Sorry, present.
I'm sorry if I say the names wrong. Please correct me if I do. Sahara Jimenez.
Shreya Jimenez.
Shreya Jimenez. Thank you.
Present.
Moniqua Lane.
Can I hear?
Yeah, we can hear you, Monica.
I mean,
After Dylan, maybe we can talk about the PPP again.
hello.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yay, I can hear people.
Jim Tofel. Liz Wilson.
I'm here.
Jay Young.
Here.
Mindy Bernstein.
Present.
And Lori, I'm sorry.
Lori Miservo, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And then the non-voting members, Maggie Amando Tejas.
I'm here.
Okay. Wendy Asher.
Here.
Marianne Bierling.
Present.
Mark Clark.
Present.
Vicky Cusino.
Here.
Corin Manning.
Present.
Liz Morales.
Present.
And Dan Sullivan.
Present.
Thank you.
We have quorum. And now we are going to, we are very, very fortunate to have both Mayor Romero and Councilmember Santa Cruz to do a welcoming. And we know that the mayor is super busy. So thank you, Mayor Romero. I know you have some things you'd like to share with the commission.
Yes, thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate your leadership in your department's role in putting this commission together, along with Councilmember Lane Santa Cruz, the rest of my colleagues on the council, and all present. Thank you for your interest. I know that you all applied for this appointment, and it's really amazing, wonderful to see all the wonderful, beautiful faces present today. People that really represent a diverse array of who we are as a city, different interests and different areas of the city, as well as you know, the different pieces of the puzzle when it comes to affordable housing and equitable development in the city of Tucson. You have a very important position of advising mayor and council based on the facts that are presented to you, based on your ideas, and also based on the mayor and council's vision for what we want to see when it comes to creating affordable housing within the city of Tucson, and looking at the built environment, looking at an equitable way of developing and creating density within our city, creating opportunity within our city, and creating progress within our city. So I'm very, very happy and very grateful to welcome you to the first meeting. We have been talking about this commission for at least 2 years. And when we first thought about it, we knew we had a housing commission, but it was defunct and it needed to be reimagined. And, I want to especially thank for that legwork. I want to especially thank Councilmember Santa Cruz, because really she took it upon herself to look at the language and express the vision of mayor and council in this commission. And looking around the room, the virtual room, I do see that expressed in all of you. We are missing, I don't know if we have a representative of South Tucson, Liz, on the call. I know that when I first started talking about affordability and creating affordability, I wanted to make sure that we did it hand in hand with other jurisdictions in the area. And we felt that having Pima County present here in the city of South Tucson, represented here, as well as Pima Council on Aging and the non-voting members whose voice is equally important to have at the table, because they bring an area of expertise that we want them to share with you all. And so I just wanted to thank you, and I am looking forward to the work that you're about to embark on. We want your advice. And most importantly, we don't want this commission to be a rubber stamp. We want you all to bring your ideas, roll up your sleeves, and get to work with us, because you do represent the community and we want to hear from you. So muchísimas gracias. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your commitment, and I look forward to the work that you're going to send our way, with the input of those on this table, but also with the input of the community. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor. You always make me so proud. It really is your leadership. You have inspired me and the community to really look at affordable housing, to look at how we can make some serious progress. And so this wouldn't have happened without your leadership. So thank you so much for that, Mayor Romero. And I agree, Councilmember Santa Cruz has been wonderful. Really put together what we're about to see, which is the scope and the responsibilities of the commission. And so now I'd like to ask Councilmember Santa Cruz if you'd like to share some remarks.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everybody on the commission for your commitment in helping us create a vision for how we're going to meet the needs of our most marginalized and our most vulnerable in the community. You know, I represent Ward 1, which is the west side and the southwest side of the city. And, you know, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to housing affordability, people experiencing homelessness, fair wages in the work. Or a lot of our legacy businesses are really being challenged right now during the pandemic. And so I know that for me, you know, like housing, my own experience around housing, you know, I'm a product of Section 8 housing and different, you know, housing programs from the city and the county as I was growing up. I remember my parents living at my tia's, you know, as they were trying to figure out a place to live. And then I also remember my parents housing other people when they were in transition or trying to find a place to live, so that a lot of the times we think of just the folks that we see on the street, and it's important that we provide housing for everybody, but that there's so many families that are experiencing homelessness every day, and that we don't, you know, we're not thinking about them. So I'm hoping that we can just kind of connect the dots. We know housing and development is one piece of it, but there's a whole ecosystem around it. And so we tried, you know, really hard to be intentional around this commission. Like the mayor said, we didn't want it to be just a rubber stamp commission. We wanted to make sure that folks were ready to get their hands dirty and work with us, and that we're here to champion your work. We want y'all to challenge us. But we also want we want and need your help in coming up with solutions. I think it's easier to always criticize what's happened, what's not happening. It's harder to come up with solutions to meet that. And we can't do all the things all the time. And so we're really gonna lean on this commission to help us figure out our next steps. And again, with that, thank you so much for your commitment. We're here to support in any way that we can. Y adelante. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. That call to action was pretty awesome. So I feel the motivation and the desire to work together with this commission. I think it's important that we all know what we can do, what we can't do as a commission, and how we make sure we're in compliance with open meeting laws. So we're now going to have the city clerk's office provide a presentation on those things that we need to know. And I think it's Anna, right, Anna? Are you talking to us today?
Yes, I am. I am so sorry. We're in training today, and we just ordered pizza, and I'm trying to multitask over here. I'm so sorry. So, okay, so we're ready to start the open meeting law presentation then?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my video, and I'm gonna share my screen so I can get the presentation up.
Before you start, Anna, I'm gonna have to step out of your meeting, but I really appreciate you all. Have a wonderful time today, and just know that your work is super important to all of us. I wanted to also acknowledge that Betty Villegas is in the room representing the city of South Tucson Housing, and then of course give a thank you to Maggie Amado Tellez with the Pima County, Tucson Pima County housing. What is it?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful meeting, and I'm looking forward to all the work that you're going to present to us, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Gracias.
Of all places, City Hall has the slowest Wi-Fi. There we go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So again, my name is Ana Marufo, and with me is Jaime Corrales. I'm the management assistant that oversees all the city's boards, committees, and commissions. And we also oversee the liquor license section. So we're pretty busy over here. Jaime is our new boards, committees, and commissions office supervisor. So any correspondence will come from him. I pretty much oversee the process of making sure that all the agendas, legal action reports, and minutes are submitted and posted in a timely manner. some important handouts that I forwarded to Anne earlier. I'm not sure if she forwarded them to you already, but if not, I'm sure that she'll do that after the meeting. Handouts that I forwarded to her are the Mayor and Council rules and regulations. These pretty much explain how BCCs or how Mayor and Council help structure the meetings with these rules and regs. They mirror the Mayor and Council meetings on a smaller scale. It's a good read. There's a lot of really good information in them. And like I said, this is something that I forwarded to Anne earlier, so she'll forward those to you. I also sent a copy of the city's Code of Ethics. This is also covered because it applies to all city employees, including the boards, committees, and commission commissioners. So this requires maintaining the highest standards of personal integrity, truthfulness, etc. Some of the interesting topics in that handout are the acceptance of gifts, workplace bullying, conflict of interests, and those sort of topics. So it's also really interesting to read. Some other material that we do have available on our webpage is the handbook. I didn't print that because it is pretty long. This was actually written by a commissioner from another BCC, and she put a lot of work into it, a lot of really good information in it. There's also an open meeting law booklet that you can look at. And there's some templates also mostly for support staff that they can use for attendance reports, legal action reports. We have a lot of scripts for the chairperson for elections, a lot of good information. So if you get a chance to navigate through our BCC webpage, it would be actually be really good information for you, especially if you are new to a commission. There's some really good information there. So first of all, we're going to get into the open meeting law. So what is the open meeting law? I will tell you now, it is not the most interesting subject, but you'll see that it is the best way to be transparent with the public. The law was enacted to maximize public access to governmental processes. It has been amended over the years, but the express intent is still to provide openness in government. So in short, the open meeting law is intended to ensure the public access to government and to ensure that the people's business is conducted openly. And I think Liz mentioned that earlier today. So the purpose of the open meeting law, one thing to keep in mind is the public informed, and do they have access to these meetings? You will hear me repeat these two things several times throughout the presentation. And it's not that I'm getting old and senile, but we feel that this is the best way to be transparent with the public, and it protects you, the public official. The first thing that we're going to cover are virtual meetings. This is new, and we just started implementing this because every BCC is meeting remotely now. So we do have some guidelines from the city manager's office that the city clerk's office put together for you. As of June 2020, the city manager issued direction and approved BCC members to attend meetings electronically due to COVID. We don't know if this will change once we go back to holding in-person meetings, but we will post any information on our BCC webpage and update support staff of the Housing Commission and also the chair by email if anything changes. So some of the things to keep in mind is that all the BCCs are conducted virtually. The entire membership will meet remotely. So in other words, we cannot have a group of maybe 3 or 4 in a conference room while the rest of the members are home. Everyone has to meet virtually on their own. They can meet in a conference room if they have their own laptop. So that way, when they do roll call, you will answer on your own with your own audio. We forwarded your support staff and chair all the virtual meeting guidelines, which goes into more detail regarding the entire membership meeting remotely. But one thing to keep in mind is to make sure that no group meet at one place while the others meet remotely. The chat boxes are a public record and they may be used to speak on or raise your hand only, but not for participation. The members must participate by audio only, and the attendance must be done by taking roll call, which Vanessa did earlier. And then of course the chair provide the opening statement, which Liz did earlier too. So Jaime and I were so happy when we saw everything done right at the beginning of the meeting. So we were very excited. Not too many BCCs got the gist of it. So we're glad that you guys did. Now,
Hey,
I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry I'm late. This is Jim Toffel. I just was able to join in.
Okay, thank you. We'll notate the time.
Checking in.
I have 12:26 if anyone is taking attendance. Thank you. Next, we're going to get into the technological platforms. The city's preferred platform is Microsoft Teams, and we recommend this platform. However, I see that you are using Zoom and that's fine. BCCs may use other platforms so long as the supporting department operates the equipment, and they have the following options, which is the recording option. It has the video or a phone-in option and allows BCC members, staff, and the public to join remotely. I think that's all on virtual meeting. Does anyone have any questions so far? I hope I'm not going too fast. Let me know if I am going too fast. Okay, so now we're going to get into the definition of a meeting. The definition of a meeting is a gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of a public body at which legal action is discussed, proposed, deliberated, or taken. So something to be careful about is holding an illegal meeting that the public has not been given proper notice of. This can easily happen when emailing or calling each other. So we recommend sending all communication through your support staff. And by support staff, I believe it would be Liz, and I'm not sure if Vanessa is included in that, but anytime, if in doubt about sending information or communicating with other members, please send them to support staff first and the chair, and they will disseminate that information for you. We'll get into some of the examples on violations later. Okay, and some open meeting law elements is that the public must be permitted to attend and listen. Call to the audience is not required, but we do encourage it. All legal action must occur during a public meeting, and written minutes are required, including this for the subcommittees. So just remember that the committee and any subcommittees are public bodies. The open meeting law clearly states that all meetings of any public body shall be public meetings. Any virtual meeting platform must allow for any member of the public to attend, and I believe Zoom does. If you're interested in any other platforms, I believe other BCCs use GoToMeetings, and I can't think of other ones that they've used, but it seems to me like Microsoft Teams and Zoom are the more popular ones. Again, with these open meeting law elements, keep in mind, can the public attend? Are they able to record the meeting? Can they ask questions when they are allowed, and so forth? Some other open meeting law elements is that public notice is required. So any member of the public can make a record of the meeting. And the room must be large enough to hold the number of people reasonably expected to attend. These are more like for in-person meetings. So whenever you go back to meeting in person, make sure that the room is big enough to accommodate not just the commissioners, but any member of the public, especially if you have a topic that has brought attention, like media attention or something like that, and then you're going to have some people attend. Make sure it's in a room big enough to accommodate everyone. More elements of the open meeting law is that the agenda must contain enough information so that the public is informed about the matters to be discussed. We'll get into each of these topics, but briefly just remember, is the public informed? Has quorum been established? And just like Liz did at the very beginning, it was established. A quorum is established by calling a roll call and confirming that 51% of the membership is present. Call to the audience is another open meeting law element. Again, it is not required. However, we usually include it and encourage it for all the BCCs. Executive sessions, you shouldn't be holding these. There are very few specific reasons in the open meeting law for holding an executive session. Most fall under the purview of the city attorney's office, and it doesn't apply to this committee. But if you do, if there's ever a time when you do feel like you need one, you can bring it to our attention and we'll make sure that we'll go over it with the city attorney's office and the city clerk. And then as the legal action report in the minutes, we'll get to that later. Meeting notice requirement, the state law does require that they be posted on our website. With today's technology, the public has come to accept this. So we refer most of them to our BCC webpage. So your support staff will forward us those agendas and they will be posted on our, under the Housing Commission. I'm not sure what the official posting location is for the housing. I know that this is a first meeting, so they might not have established that yet, but most of the BCC's official location is here at City Hall. When City Hall is currently closed due to COVID, but when it is open to the public, we post all the agendas in the lobby. Some of the more meeting notice requirements is that the posting must take place at least 24 hours before the meeting, but we do request a minimum of 48 hours. Our staff is currently telecommuting from home, so we try to post these as soon as we receive them from support staff or the BCC chairs. And we require the 48 hours minimum because of actions our staff needs to take to comply with the open meeting law. Our office does manage over 50 boards, committees, and commissions, so we are a very busy office. So we can get those meeting notices early, sooner before the meeting takes place. We'll make sure that the agenda is posted in a timely manner. Some of the agendas that must describe specific matters to be discussed and considered are non-specific announcements, reports. They're allowed for statements only, not for discussions. And items not usually permitted are new business, old business. In your case, it would be new business because it's a new commission, but I didn't see that on your agenda. These are too vague and they don't give the public enough information. Members can present brief summaries as long as this is listed in the agenda also. We'll get into quorum. So a quorum must be present to conduct the meeting. If you had a number of vacancies, you would still require the 51% of voting membership, which is the simple majority, to be present to constitute a quorum. So in short, a quorum is generally just a majority of the members of the public body that includes the vacancies. I'm not sure if the Housing Commission has all the members in place. I know that you folks were allowed 9 voting members, but I'm not sure if you have any vacancies yet. If you do, Liz or Ann, you can forward us those and we'll make sure that we contact the ward offices or the appointers so we can get a full commission going.
I do believe we're fully, we don't have any vacancies.
Oh, good. Support staff and ex officio members don't vote, so they don't count towards quorum. If you're not sure what an ex officio member is, they pretty much the experts in that field. In other words, Liz, she's the expert in housing, so she would be an ex officio member, and it literally means from the office. That's an ex officio member. If you ever form a subcommittee, they will also require a quorum to conduct business. We discourage members of the full commission from attending a subcommittee meeting unless they're on that particular subcommittee. Anne forwarded me an email. I believe you folks will need to draft some bylaws in the first year. You can form a subcommittee to write those bylaws, and once those are drafted, then the full commission will vote on them and approve them. So that's how pretty much how a subcommittee would work. You can assign maybe 3 or 4 commissioners to form that subcommittee. And then they can draft those for the commission. So what happens if you lose quorum? On meeting day, if you do lose quorum, Most of this is more like for in-person, because this is just a generic PowerPoint that we use for all BCCs. It says most must post a notice on our webpage, or we have them posted on the door of the conference room if you do meet in person. And the reason we have them do that is because it advises the public that the meeting was canceled and why it was canceled. So that way they are not left wondering, or they'll be contacting your support staff or your chair or us and ask us, what happened. Staff will take care of this. I'm just bringing it up so that you are aware what is required by law. We will post your cancel agenda as soon as we receive it. Most BCCs have it written into their bylaws as far as the time they're going to wait to meet quorum. At the beginning of the meeting, let's say you need 5 to meet quorum and only 4 members are online waiting for that 5th one. You can wait up to 15 minutes. And then if that person doesn't show up, you can cancel. The time is set by the chair. So once you folks select a chair, then he or she will select or we'll figure out a time that they want to wait for that 5th member to show up. But like I said, most BCCs have it written into their bylaws. Again, I mentioned this post notice on the BCC webpage. During the meeting, they need to recess the meeting until the quorum is back. This means if you barely have quorum, for example, if you barely have the 5 commissioners, then one of them, let's say, needs to leave the room to take a phone call or something like that, the chair must recess the meeting until that 5th commissioner comes back. And if you do cancel the meeting, the legal action report and the minutes are still required. Any questions so far? Okay, we'll get into call to the audience now. Just like with the non-specific and generic announcements or reports, discussion is not allowed. The meeting notice didn't specify what will be discussed during call to the audience, but we strongly encourage BCCs to have this item on their agenda, because remember, is the public informed? For virtual meetings, if public comments are allowed, include language on how the public may participate and list department support staff contact information that the public may use. Hold on for one moment, okay?
Just for those of you, I know there's some of you that have to leave at 1. We're gonna move a couple things around so we could try to get a couple things done before many of you have to leave. So we'll do the introductions and chair election, and then we'll get into the other items. We'll record, because this meeting is recorded. If you left at 1, we'll make sure to share it with everyone and you can catch up on what you missed, okay?
Thank you, Liz. Let's see, where did I leave off? Sorry, I got a little distracted. Again, call to the audience does allow the public an opportunity to express any concerns on matters within the public's body jurisdiction. And you'll see this come up quite often when you have something that interests them. And they will, of course, contact, hopefully they will contact Ann and Liz first before, so that way they can prepare with some answers. The thing to remember is that it cannot become a discussion, but in response, a member of the commission can request the staff to review a matter if they bring something up, or they can request a future agenda item. You can respond to direct criticism. This happens in, of course, in-person meetings. If they will say something about you or that you don't like, or you feel like you're being attacked, you have a right to defend yourself. You can respond to those sort of members who will say something that you feel is a direct criticism. That is the only time you're allowed to respond. Other than that, you can put it on the agenda item or review the matter. Okay, exec sessions, I talked a little bit about that, but very briefly, I'll let you know what those are. There are 7 authorized topics allowed by law to go into exec sessions. These usually fall under the purview of the city attorney's office, like personnel matters, legal advice, discussion, consultation with attorneys regarding settlements, contracts, that sort of thing. Like I said, I don't see this body needing to go into exec session, but if something does come up, city staff will ensure the reason is legitimate and all legal requirements are met. And this is just the definition of a legal action. Just remember that all legal actions are any decisions, agreements, commitments, and votes. They all must occur during the public meeting. So nothing can be done outside of a public meeting. That's pretty much what the legal action is. The legal action report, again, this is another requirement that staff will complete for you. But just so you know, he or she is going to list all the legal action taken for each agenda item. This report is due in our office 3 working days after the committee. So today is Wednesday the 3rd. The LAR will be due into our office on Monday the 8th. So we don't count the weekends. So by Monday the 8th, they're gonna have the legal action report. And the legal action report will remain posted on our website for 1 year after the meeting, and they are a permanent record. The subcommittees have a little bit more time. They have 10 days after the meeting to file the legal action report with us. So if you do form that bylaws subcommittee, they will have more time to complete their legal action report. And the legal action report is just a summary of what happened at the meeting. Minutes are more extensive, and I'll get in a little bit about that on our next slide. Minutes are a major component of the open meeting law, and these are some of the items that must be included in the minutes. The name of the public body, the date, time, and location of the meeting. It must list all the names of the members present or absent. It must also indicate any late arrivals or early departure. A general description of the items covered and actions taken. Again, that's all that the legal action report will include. Names of any persons making statements or presenting material to the committee. And it must be in writing. That's another question that Anne had. The audio recording can be forwarded to us, and we will upload that to our webpage. But the written minutes are required because of the retention period. Audio recordings, retention period is 3 to 4 months. Although we do keep it for a whole year and post it for a whole year. By law, the audio recordings, the retention period is 3 to 4 months, but the written minutes are a permanent record. And the city clerk does require the written minutes to be submitted for all the BCCs. Some more information on minutes is that a recording of the minute or draft minutes must be available to the public within 3 days of the meeting. That's the LAR, the legal action report, 3 days after the meeting. If minutes in written format have not been officially approved by the public body, a draft or an unofficial version of these must be available to the public until they are approved. And that's the legal action report again. Once you have this meeting, your staff will draft the minutes, and then they will have them ready for you to approve them at your next meeting. So let's say you meet on March 3rd. Then on that day, you're going to approve the minutes of today's meeting. And then those minutes, once they are approved, they need to be turned into our office for posting 2 days after they are approved. And these are the ones that become a permanent record. And then if you have any more questions about that, you can let me know after the meeting. Just shoot me an email, and then we can figure out some deadlines or some dates for you if it's a little bit confusing, because I know that this is a little bit confusing for a lot of the support staff. Okay, now for the bad news, violations. Remember, a meeting includes a gathering by technological devices, which can include by email or phone call. This can be challenging for some BCC members. A violation of the open meeting law is if one member sends an email to a quorum of the members that proposes any legal action. If the other members didn't respond, even if the other members don't respond to the email or take the exchange any further. So when the chair or support staff sends an email, they should include a note saying do not reply by email. I have a disclaimer in my email that when I send out all the emails, that disclaimer is there, do not forward any emails and so forth. Anne and Liz, if you don't have that, I will send to you. I will send that to you after the meeting, so that way you can include that disclaimer on every email when you communicate with the members. It is okay to use the email to the full commission to propose adding an item to a future agenda, but you cannot send it individually or to each individual member. Some cautions to avoid violations is don't daisy chain with phone calls or emails to other BCCs. Basically, a daisy chain is like Commissioner A will call Commissioner B, Commissioner B will call Commissioner C, and so forth. And also don't use the spoke and wheel method of communication. The spoke and wheel method is, for example, Commissioner A will act as the spoke, and then he or she will call Commissioner B, and then C, and then D, and so forth. That's the spoken wheel method. So in order to avoid any violation, we tell BCCs not to talk any business or take action outside of a meeting. Of course, we don't want to scare you into not having a cup of coffee with other members. We just don't want you to be discussing any agenda items with the other members. Empire Pizza.
Did we lose you, Hannah?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you didn't. Hold on for one moment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am so sorry about that. Consensus building is not permitted outside of the meeting, and I think I talked about that. And again, use caution with emails and telephone calls between meetings to discuss any potential agenda items. And then also during the meeting, it's very easy to, go off topic, go off on a rabbit trail. It's best to just stay on track and keep to the agenda item as it was posted. We do ask that you follow a simple rule, and that's just to send communications to support staff and then let them disseminate all the information for you. Okay, and the reason we discuss violations and investigations is because open meeting law is enforced by the state attorney general, and it's usually complaint driven. We have one of the stricter laws in the country. And if you are found in violation, you are personally liable. The city attorney, remember the city attorney is our attorney, so they will not be able to defend you. You will be fined $500 per violation, and you will be removed from the committee. So that hasn't happened yet. I'm sure that we have a lot of the commissioners that are very cautious when it comes to these sort of things. If you have any questions, of course, you can reach to support staff. Or you can just send us an email. Just make sure that you CC your support staff and chair on your emails. Conflict of interest. This is the statutory definition. I just briefly put it up because that's how it is worded in the statute. But this is the public's perception. In layman terms, it pretty much means that no officer shall use their position to influence any government decision in which they have a material, financial, or property interest, or where they have a duty or personal relationship that may give the appearance of a conflict of interest. Substantial interest means that any pecuniary, I can't say that word, financial, any financial or proprietary interest, either direct or indirect, other than the remote interest. We do ask that you just err on the side of caution. So if you do determine that you as a member of the public body has a substantial interest, or if you determine there may be a conflict before the meeting, advise the chairperson of the committee that you are declaring a conflict of interest. You can verbally recuse yourself from the item, And then during the item, refrain from participating in any manner, including discussing, voting, or in any way attempting to influence the decision by the rest of the members. I like to use Councilmember Kozachik as an example. He works for the athletics department at the U of A. And the mayor and council approves all the liquor licenses applications for any of their special events. So anytime there is a special event application that goes to them for approval, he usually recuse himself from the approval process. He doesn't necessarily leave the room. He'll just sit back and will not participate at all. The chair of this commission, though, can ask the member if they do have a conflict of interest to leave the room. Or they can just, stay in their seat. They just don't participate at all. And this is all I have. Just recognize that you are the link between the City of Tucson residents and the mayor and council. You should really work with your appointer so you can make the right recommendations to the mayor and council for this, for this commission. We encourage you to review the BCC handbook and the open meeting law information on our website. And again, the last thing is to keep in mind that when in doubt, err on the side of transparency, public notice and public access. I do have our phone number up there. If you have any questions, you can use that and give us a call. And that is all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Ana. As I know you said it wasn't very interesting, but it was important for us to know, and we appreciate you walking us through that. So thank you so much. And one of the things I found interesting in this, the way the Board of Commissioners were selected wasn't necessarily by individual wards, but at least two members of mayor and council put forth your name, or two of the appointments were by the director. So if you do have, you are basically appointed by all of mayor and council. And so feel free to share your thoughts or concerns with any one of them, the one that represents where you live, or any other one. So I know if you do want to talk on a one-on-one basis, they'd be happy to talk to you. I want to kind of take our agenda a little bit out of order.
Hey, sorry to jump in, but I think Mike Edmonds has a question.
Yeah, just a quick one. Are we considering, at least for the moment, we considering you, Liz, and Ann Chineka, I hope I pronounced it properly, as support staff for the moment?
So that was a good question. I was going to ask Ann and Vanessa to put their names and contact information in the chat. Ann, is there anybody else from staff that you would like to include as support staff?
Lauren Seamus would be the last one as well.
So we'll put our information in there. And I want to just start by saying thanks to Ann and Lauren. They worked incredibly hard to get the application process done, getting them formatted and sent out. And so they've done a tremendous amount of legwork on this. Anne has been the rock star here as far as helping me understand boards and commissions and making sure we're doing this properly. So Anne is always a great person to go to first, and Lauren, Vanessa and I are always available as well to answer questions. So in the interest of time, I do want to spend some time for those who are commissioners. I also, at the end, after the commissioners do a quick introduction, I would like the ex officio officers to do a quick, again, just name and what your organization is. And then we'll open it up to see if anyone's interested in serving as chair. And we'd probably want to do a vice chair too, to make sure we're covered for that. So let's start, and I'll just name the names. Let's start with Jay Young. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, Liz, can I interrupt you for a minute? I just wanted to let you know that if anyone has any questions on open meeting law, I'm gonna have to leave because I have training I have to attend to.
No, that's okay. We know how to contact you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye. Jay, you want to go?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Young, and I am the Executive Director of the Southwest Fair Housing Council. I don't know, Liz, is there anything else you want us to keep it brief like that?
Let's keep it brief for now. I want to get more in depth because I really want all of you to get to know each other. The fact that we're not in the same room is kind of challenging, but at least if we can get faces to names and how you're kind of affiliated. But the first group here is everyone that has been, who is an official voting member of the commission. So thank you, Jay. Jim?
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. My name is Jim Toffel. I'm with Toffel Den Construction. We're a general contractor based in Tucson. We have specialized in affordable housing construction. Over the last 15 years, I think we've built about 100 and rehabbed about 100 projects across the state. And we've done probably about 25% of all of the affordable housing projects in the state. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the different programs that are out there and how deals go together. And I'm excited to be part of this commission.
Thank you, Jim. Liz Wilson?
Hi, my name is Liz. My pronouns are she, her. I am a community member. When I applied, I was a housing case manager at Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation, and I currently work at MHC Healthcare with people living with serious mental illnesses. I also co-founded a mutual aid organization in the community that responded to COVID-19, collecting and distributing masks to people living in homelessness.
Thank you, Liz. Moniqua?
I'm getting there. I have to start my video. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Lane. I develop hotels mostly. I'm a Tucson native. I live downtown and am just interested in the housing issue generally.
Thank you. Olga?
Hi, my name is Olga Flores. I work with Fairway Independent Mortgage Company. I am a loan officer, and my emphasis and focus is on first-time home buyers, increasing home ownership in the low to moderate income home buyers. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Sharia?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sharia Jimenez. I also go by Shay, if that's easier. I'm here representing myself with Cuadro, a startup design firm. I'm also sit on the county housing commission, so I'm also interested in kind of bridging that gap. And then, sorry, my son. And then I also, I was gonna mention one other thing, but I forgot. So excited to be working with you all, and I know most of you, so it's great to see everybody.
Thank you. How about Michael Edmonds?
All right, I live in Tucson House. I'm currently secretary of the Tucson House Residents Council, and I'm involved in Thrive in the 05, and that should do it for the moment.
Thank you. Lori?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lori Miserbo. I'm the Chief Program Officer at our Family Services.
Great, thank you. And Mindy?
Hi, I'm Mindy. I recently retired last year, but have had my working career had been working with individuals enrolled in the indigent behavioral healthcare system. I have a strong desire to address inequities in how we work or address issues of serious mental illness in our community, homelessness, and the importance of having a sound housing program for vulnerable individuals as well as low income, concerned about displacement in our development of housing in our city. And I think that's enough. I'm so happy to be here. Such a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. And before we introduce the ex officio members, I do want to ask now if anyone that is a commissioner that would like to serve as chair, would you speak up now? And we could have more than one, so that's okay.
May I nominate?
Yes.
And I don't know, I admit I don't know enough about everyone, but I'd like to ask Jay Young if he might be interested in being chair.
Okay. Are you interested, Jay?
Maybe.
Anybody else who would like to put their name forth?
Shay, because you have experience being on the previous commission, is this something that you would be interested in? I don't want to put you in a position you're not comfortable in.
I mean, honestly, I'm worried about how much more time it will take. Is it an additional time commitment? But I don't have a ton of experience leading the commission, so I just attend, and it's really easy and low commitment that way.
Well, we'll keep that in mind, maybe as vice chair, if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable to watch.
I think I would prefer something like that than to just dive right into the lead.
Anybody have any interest?
I was also gonna maybe mention, I mean, partly I said maybe for the reason Shay, I think, mentioned as well, like what's the time commitment and just generally the commitment. So it'd be nice to know about that.
Anne, do you want to try to take a stab at time commitment?
Sure, I think that's a good question. And I would say in part will depend on how, what you're interested in terms of really designing what the commission works on. At a minimum, I would say working with us on setting the agendas and then also facilitating the meetings are kind of the two main things. That said, as both Councilmember Santa Cruz and the mayor pointed out, they really don't want this to be a rubber stamp committee. And so I think really thinking through, really being intentional about how the commission, what items come on the agenda and really what the discussions are. I do hope that that will be a nice partnership with whoever. I will also say will now be the 5th commission that I've helped be a staff liaison to. So I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad in my years doing this. I will say that oftentimes a chair and vice chair working together usually works out well so that they don't feel like they have to do everything by themselves.
And what's the duration that you guys are thinking?
Normally, it's a 1-year commitment, and usually each year the commission members will vote for a new chair.
So any other volunteers?
Yeah, I'll volunteer.
Okay. So hearing that Jim's volunteering, does that help you, Jay and Shay, on your decision?
I'd certainly be happy to let Jim chair.
Okay. And I appreciate that, Jay. I know everyone here is very busy. So we also have the opportunity, Jay or Shay, to serve as vice chair. And so I throw that out to you.
I would definitely put forward to serve as vice chair if she's interested.
What do you say, Shay?
Honestly, I am worried about the time commitment, so I'd rather just step down at this point. I don't want to overcommit myself. So, and I think the two, I don't know, Jay, you as well, but Jim, I, again, really respect your work and think this is would be a great appointment.
So is there any other comments or discussions? All right, let's take a vote and I'll ask Vanessa to do roll call.
I think Mindy has a comment.
Oh, good. I'm sorry, Mindy.
I do. I think Mr. Edmonds might have a great deal of, you've already expressed that you are the head of the Tucson housing, your Tucson house. So I would love to see you throw in your hat. Unless it's too late. Everybody's already expressed.
Not too late. It's not too late.
With respect to Jim and Jay and Shay, I've never chaired a commission. I'm willing to do my best, but based on what information I was able to find out about the current commissioners, is why I mentioned you, Jay. And I understand your background too, Jim. But I was leaning towards Jay. So I'm willing to help in whatever capacity I can. I'll do my best.
So do you want us to consider you for vote for either chair or vice chair? Mike?
You know what? I'm going to go with Shay on Jim. I'm going to lean towards Jim to be chair.
Okay.
And if Jay, if you're a little busy, I'd be willing to try to be the best vice chair I can be.
Edmonds, I think you'd be great at it. And again, if people really want me to do it, I will. But Edmonds, I think you'd be a great person to do it. So I think if you're all right, I'd love to see you throw your hat in the ring as well.
Okay. So let's take a roll call on for Jim as chair and Mike and/or Jay for vice chair. We could even certainly do even co-vice chairs. I'm sure we could do as much as we need to, but we'll just do a roll call and get everyone's vote.
Michael Edmonds.
Voting for the chair, vote for Jim.
Yeah.
Okay. Olga Flores.
Jim.
Shay Jimenez.
Jim, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Vanessa?
Miss Lane.
Jim, thanks so much, Jim.
Jim Tofel.
Mhm.
You're muted, Jim.
Sorry, do you want me to vote for myself? Sure, or I can abstain. I'm not sure if that's a conflict.
Liz Wilson.
Is this like a yay nay situation? Then I'm a yay.
Jay Young.
Yay for Jim.
Mindy Bernstein.
Jim.
Lori.
Yay.
And thank Vanessa. Hey, one thing I just want to jump in and say that I feel like I had heard in terms of there is Robert's Rules of Order. I think Jim agreed to make a motion to serve as chair, and I believe I heard Jay or Shay second that motion, Vanessa, for sake of the legal action report.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So now let's for the vice chair, either Jay or Michael Edmonds, Jay Young or Michael Edmonds. So we'll just do a vote that way. And so let's go through that one for vice chair.
Do we do it that way?
Is there a discussion on this before we vote?
We can have discussion.
Why, Jay's, I guess I'd like to understand if either of you don't feel like you can perform, I just want to hear that, that you don't think the role is right for you, or is this something that you guys want? I'm not sure where your heads are, I guess.
I thought I was somewhat outspoken. I'll again, never chaired a commission, never vice chaired a commission. We'll do the best I can. I appreciate the interest in having me as vice chair, and so I'll allow my name to be there for the vote.
I'd like to take him out of the running if that's possible.
I think that's possible. And what we'll do then is just confirm through the roll call that if people agree and Anne, again, jump in if there's a certain way we need to do it.
Well, I think I then heard Mindy make a motion earlier for Mike, and I think Mike sounds comfortable, and Jay seems to have seconded that. So just doing the formal logistics here.
Okay. So let's do a roll call, yay or nay for Mike Edmonds.
Mike Edmonds?
May I abstain from this vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Olga Flores?
Yay.
Shay Jimenez?
Yay.
Monique Lane?
Yay.
Jim Tofel?
Yay.
Liz Wilson?
Yay.
Jay Young?
Yay.
Mindy Bernstein?
Yay.
And Lori Miservo?
Yay.
All right, so we have a chair, and Jim, I'd like to turn it over the agenda to you now that you are chairing the meeting. I will tell you that we skipped 4 and 5. So if you are okay, we can just go back to number 4.
You're on mute, Jim.
I'm gonna assume he's good.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was switching between screens here. So I believe the next agenda item is the Housing and Community Development Overview.
Yes. And by the way, before we move forward, I do want to thank you, Jim, and Mike, for taking on these roles. And Jay, I know you could do it in your sleep. Thank you for your willingness, and I always appreciate your graciousness too. So Anne's going to share a PowerPoint, and I'm going to start it, and then she's going to jump in. We wanted to give you a very quick overview. Most of you are familiar with the Housing and Community Development Department, but for those who aren't, who are joining our meeting and aren't too familiar, we are a department in the city of Tucson. We are very focused, our funding and programs around people, communities, and homes. And this might look familiar to some of you that participated in our P-CHIP process, our document, our plan. So we feel that this very much reflects who our department is. We do a lot of services to our residents through either directly through our programs, and also we fund a lot of nonprofit agencies to do direct services to the people in our community to provide them access to jobs, income, supportive services, education. Also on the community side, we work very much around neighborhoods. We get community development block grant funds, which I'll share a little bit more, that we have been able to do a lot of work around sidewalks, bus shelters, parks, and other key infrastructure. And also we have been able to help nonprofits with developing facilities, making their facilities energy efficient. And then on the home side, which is really the bread and butter of our business, is making sure people have access to safe and decent housing, whether it's through our rehabilitation program for low-income homeowners, getting people into housing through our Section 8 programs or our public housing. So that's really our main mission is those 3 areas. We do have public housing, and thank you, Olga. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next meeting. We do own about over 1,500 properties. You can see the breakdown and kind of where they're located. 550 are multifamily properties for older adults. A good portion of that is Tucson House. And then we have 452 multifamily properties for families and 503 single family properties scattered throughout Mesa. I'm sorry, why did I say Mesa? That is so strange. Tucson, I don't know where Mesa is anymore. So next slide is our Section 8 program. We have over 6,000 vouchers. About 5,000 of that is City of Tucson allocation. We also have about 800 vouchers that we do for the county, Pima County. This is where individuals pay a portion of their income, 30 to 40% towards rent, and the balance is paid by the city of Tucson. And it is with private landlords, and it can be apartments, it can be single families. It's housing of their own choice and landlords who volunteer to work with our program. We are heavily in efforts to recruit landlords. We've done a tremendous job in the past year to get our program working really well for landlords. We're getting a lot of great responses that is working well. Landlords are getting paid, inspections are getting done. And that program in itself, we were able to increase the funding for 2021 by 2 million because of the efforts of increasing our utilization in 2020. And so that total program is about around 43 million. All right. We also do affordable housing where we own these properties that are not public housing and don't have necessarily federal programs or federal ties to it. There's about 451 units, mostly multifamily and some single family. We do charge families rent below the market, and we are actively looking at how we can expand this, because the more we can bring more affordable housing assets to the community, the better. Our second half of our house, I always say we're divided into two parts. We have the housing section. Now we have the community development section. This is the federal programs where we get direct allocations from HUD. The largest program is community development block grants. We get approximately 5.6 million, at least for this current fiscal year. We have about 5.6 million in CDBG funds. We do various types of activities, including human services, public facilities, and housing rehabilitation. The home investment program is the affordable housing program that HUD funds us about 3.5 million a year. That we use that to help develop rental and home ownership opportunities for people. And then our emergency solutions grant, the ESG, that's about 483,000 a year. That is specifically to help address homelessness, whether it's supporting shelters, doing outreach. Also, the rapid rehousing program are examples of how those funds are used. And the final program we have is called HOPWA, which stands for Housing for Persons with AIDS. People with HIV and AIDS get rental assistance and supportive services. And that's the final program under this umbrella. Something that's fairly new to our department, we have taken on the collaborative applicant role. It's a very specific role for the continuum of care. Nationally, HUD has said that in order to get homeless funding, a jurisdiction needs to have a planning body. Those are called the continuum of care. There's 3 of them in the state. Ours is called the Tucson Pima Collaboration to End Homelessness. It's comprised of community members and agencies. We have to do an annual funding process, application to HUD. It's about, I think, and I may be a little bit off, but around $11 to $12 million a year in separate funding. The city, although we're the collaborative applicant, we are not the decision makers. Neither is mayor and council. This is actually the decision makers is called the board. It's the board for TPCH, but we do serve as kind of the staffing and handling all the logistics for TPCH. So this has only been in place for about a year, and we are a great partner along with Pima County and many other of the nonprofit agencies that are even on our meeting today. So Anne's gonna take on the overview. I'm sorry, we're done with
That's okay.
4, and we're ready for the next item.
Okay, is there any questions or comments on the housing and community development overview? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item 5 on the agenda, which is the overview of the commission's scope and responsibilities.
Thanks, Jim. So I'm going to continue with the presentation, but before I do that, during the open meeting presentation, Anna mentioned, a few times that she had sent me materials to get to people. I did just want to take a minute. I sent this to you all. Yes, you can see my screen, yeah? It's the Commission on Equitable Housing and Development. Okay. So I just wanted to take a minute. I sent this email, sent you an email yesterday with this URL. I also put it in the chat. This is where we're going to house the information. So at any point, if you're looking for instance, today's presentation will upload as part of today's meeting materials. So just wanted to let you know, we're adding a few things. We'll add a place here where people can sign up to be on the commission mailing list, so they'll get notified of meetings. You all are already on that mailing list, of course, but if you know of people that are interested, community members, you can send them to this site. We'll be getting that up soon, but really sort of being the place where we will house information. And then, so I want to also say congrats on the chair and vice chair and making your first motions. I know that as a commission that can be a little bit daunting. And so congrats, Jim and Mike, and look forward to working with all of you. Okay, now getting the presentation back. So I'm just going to give a brief overview. Liz asked me to do this. I sent you the ordinance, and pretty much everything I share, it will tie back to the ordinance that mayor and council adopted in establishing the commission. So as many of you know, ordinances are technically law. And so I really tried taking the information verbatim from the ordinance. But if you have any questions at any point, I would refer you back to the ordinance. It's ordinance 11769. Anna mentioned a lot about quorum and making sure you have quorum. So given that there are 9 voting members on this commission, just so everyone is aware, 5 is the number of people that need to be present for quorum. Liz had everybody introduce themselves. I won't take a lot of time here, but just so you know, so 9 voting members, 7 were appointed by mayor and council, and 2 appointed by the HCD director. I will say, I think I saw in chat, Jessica had commented asking if people can mention what ward they represent. Just want to make sure that it's clear that unlike other commissions, none of the commissioners that were appointed by mayor and council represent an individual ward. You are representing mayor and council as a whole. And then mayor and council really felt like it was important to have broad community voices at the table. And so they identified 9 other ex officio members, and you can see the list of the ex officio people listed, the ex officio organizations or stakeholder groups that are represented there. So a few things that I thought are important to point out about the ordinance. So the ordinance and the roles and responsibilities point to 5 focus areas that the commission is really, the idea being the 5 areas that the commission works on. 1 is housing, 2 is neighborhoods, 3 being equity, diversity, and inclusivity, 4 economic vitality, and 5 cultural vitality. I pulled out from the ordinance what's stated on the mission. I'm not going to read those, but I would say if you ever have questions in terms of the overall guiding thought behind the commission, I would point you to the mission. That said, I did want to take a moment to go into a little more detail. The ordinance also lays out 5 function areas for the commission. And I think this is really intended to help you all in terms of think about what your scope is and kind of what your responsibility areas are. So 1 is to review data, needs assessments, and other materials to explore strategies and develop recommendations for the 5 focus areas. Again, those are the 5 focus areas, which I realize are very broad, but just wanted to make sure that it's clear that kind of your charge is within those 5 focus areas. I would say the next 4 are related to that. Function area number 2, identify innovative practices or new ideas for developing low cost and more affordable housing, as well as preventing and mitigating involuntary displacement. 3 is trying to bring in new financial resources and make them available for affordable housing and homelessness programs. 4, identify and work toward eliminating institution and regulatory barriers to affordable housing and job security. And then finally, function area number 5, provide recommendations on the priority for the use of HUD entitlement programs included in the HUD 5-year Consolidated Plan and HUD Annual Action Plan, as well as the Tucson Public Housing Authority Administrative Plan. There are a lot of words there that some of you might not be familiar with, nor was I until I joined the department. And we're going to talk about that particular function area a little bit later when we talk about the People, Communities, and Homes Investment Plan. So I'll provide more information on that in a bit. A few other things that stand out to me from the ordinance that I want to make sure everybody's aware of. It does talk about the structure of the commission. And so there are a few bullets under structure that I think are important to point out. 1 is following best practices in collaborative decision-making and centering the conversation around equity. 2, include representation from key stakeholder groups, which I really feel strongly this commission makeup does. 3, bring accountability to the city of Tucson. And I think you heard the mayor and council member Santa Cruz really say that they're committed to that. And 4, empower community decision-making. These are open to the public. If people are interested in sharing with their friends and people that might be interested in hearing what you all are talking about, please make sure to get the word out. The chairperson one, you've already done that, so we can check that off the list. Bylaws, Anna mentioned this, in the ordinance, it does say that the commission needs to adopt bylaws within a year. I think it's nothing you need to worry about right now, and I'd actually recommend you have several meetings before you start thinking about what those look like, but just something to keep in the back of your mind. And then last, the ordinance states that this commission should present to mayor and council quarterly. We don't yet know exactly what that will take, whether it can be just a written report, or if I would think at points mayor and council will be interested in you presenting at a mayor and council meeting, but technically 4 times a year, that is a requirement written in the ordinance. I mentioned that this will be the 5th commission I've started working on. I did start to think about things that I feel like have worked well or not so well. That said, Jim and commission members, it will really be up to you in terms of the work that you do. I did want to just kick off with just a few thoughts regarding some things to be thinking about. And the first one I do feel strongly on, defining key terms. I think that the name of the commission is the Commission on Equitable Housing and Development. And I do think it's important that we make sure people have a shared understanding of what that means. And so I was thinking of some terms that I know oftentimes people have different thoughts on. So equity being one of them. To my knowledge, the city has yet to define equity for the city. And I think that that's something that some people may be thinking of different things. Equitable housing, it's in your name. What does that mean? Affordable housing, I have definitely heard of people talk about affordable housing in different ways and meaning different things. And so that is something that I would strongly recommend over the next few months, really making sure you have a shared understanding of what some of those key terms are. A couple other things I will say so that you don't get too committed. We are wrapping up a housing market study where it provides a lot of data, but that housing market study does not start going into strategy and policies to really try to address the affordable housing demand. That is something that Liz and I have talked about really wanting to work with you all on over time to really think through those strategies. So over the next year, that's something that I can really see being helpful. And then finally, I have seen some commissions, because the ordinances and your charge is so grand, is really trying to figure out how can you take bite-sized pieces and potentially creating an action plan for where the commission will go. So those are just some of my thoughts, and happy to take questions. I see Mike has his hand up.
Yeah, I didn't know if Jim had to call on someone or not. And no problem. In regards to the affordable housing, I'm sorry, the housing market study, I assume you're talking about the information that's coming is on phase 3, the gap analysis.
Yeah, Mike, good. I appreciate how much you're paying attention. So as Mike mentioned, so we're doing a housing market study divided into 3 phases. We've completed 1 and 2. We've presented that to Mayor and Council, and we're working on 3, which is a gap analysis. And I would ask Jim for a future agenda item, potentially a March meeting, to have our partners, which it's been a partnership with the U of A and with Pima County, to really present on that first phase. We'll be done with the gap analysis by March.
And is this a presentation that you can send out to the commission members?
Yes, I will absolutely send it out, and then I will also post it on that website that will house information for the foreseeable future, so that if people can't find my email, they can always go to that website.
And what do you see as the relationship between the commission and the housing department itself?
I'm gonna let Liz take that one.
So we see the commission carrying out those things that are in the, what do we call it, the ordinance. And we are here, the department is here to help provide some guidance and support through those conversations, as well as the ex officio members. So, and then as a department, we'll be asking you, Jim, if we can bring certain items. For instance, as we talked about our annual action plans for the federal funds, anytime we have any kind of we want public input, we would like to do presentations. So I think that interaction of getting input from the commission and your advice and support and or not support, right? But to get your input so that we can let mayor and council know what is the opinion of the commission. So that's how I see some of that interaction. It could definitely evolve over time, but I really see your charge as the commission is to really follow through on trying to address those things that are in the ordinance.
If we ever want any agenda items, is that some? So obviously we talk about it the meeting beforehand, and is that the only way that we get agenda items added, or do we talk about it also with support staff?
Liz, in my experience, you can absolutely request agenda items to support staff, and then we'd work with Jim and Mike to develop the next agendas.
That sounds good.
One thing I'll also say is on this agenda and on future agendas, I also recommend having a place where you do have the ability to talk about future agenda items.
One item I wanted to raise during today's meeting was our meeting time. I think that the meeting time, clearly it didn't work for some people, but also the fact that it's in the middle of the day, I think it is concerning given the fact that it is a public forum for the public to participate in it, especially if people are working. So I'd like to make a motion to change the meeting time to later in the day, possibly 4 p.m. or even 5 p.m. if it's something that other members would be willing to consider. I think part of equity is accessibility.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay, it's been seconded by Mindy. So we'd like to open it up for discussion. So the motion, Liz, is the motion to change it to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. on the first Wednesday of the month?
I'd like for there to be a discussion regarding what works best for members, please.
As you all can see, for families too, commissioners with families, sometimes the evening time is also difficult. So I like the 4 p.m. I think that's kind of a nice compromise between allowing the public to attend, but also attending working families, you know, accommodating working families.
I guess I'm also just wondering if, do we have to have the meeting at the same time every month? Because, I mean, for some people, it's going to work well middle of the day, others in the evening. So I'm just wondering if we can change it up some to really accommodate all different schedules, particularly since, you know, these days people work all different times of the day and night. Though I know that's potentially more complicated as well.
Jim,
I work the same time, but
yeah. Jim, if I may, are members more interested in late afternoon or early evening?
Speaking personally, either is fine with me, but I agree. It's probably a little bit easier to do it later in the day, especially in the middle of the week with potential travel schedules. So I'm good with 4 p.m. as well. I think that's a good happy medium that will get everyone out by 6 o'clock for any evening activities, but it's not in the middle of the day.
Hi, this is Wendy Asher. So I think later in the day is a good compromise. That way people who are working may be able to adjust their schedule. Those folks who aren't may be able to accommodate that a little bit better. What I'd suggest is that we maybe do a doodle poll of the members of the commission to select a day of the week, because chiming in on day of the week that works for some people and not for others is probably going to take us into about 5 o'clock this afternoon. So maybe a doodle poll on that would be helpful if we decide that we want to switch it to a different time of the day.
Yeah, Jim, I was thinking about that, but I didn't know if we could take the time to postpone a decision on like the next meeting day and time.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to change the meeting time to 4 p.m. Liz, do you want to change that motion to establishing a doodle poll to determine the?
I'd like to amend my motion to establish a doodle poll to find which day of the week works best for voting and ex officio members at 4 p.m.
Okay, and Mindy, you accept that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any further discussions for the question?
I just have one clarifying question for the doodle poll maker. Are you, Liz, and are we thinking the first week of every month, or do you want me to open it up to potentially other weeks as well?
I'd say the first week of the month.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no further comments. Andy, you mind doing the roll call for the vote?
I'm going to ask Vanessa if she minds.
Vanessa. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Michael Edmonds,
Aye.
Olga, Olga left, sorry. Shay Jimenez,
Aye.
Monica also left. Jim Tofel,
Aye.
Liz Wilson,
Yay.
Jay Young,
Aye.
Mindy Bernstein,
Aye.
Lori Miserbo,
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes. You guys will all have to cut me a little bit of slack. I'm pretty rusty on my Robert's Rules of Order. It's been a while since I've done something like this, but I'll try to brush up on it here the next couple of weeks.
It wasn't too rusty.
Okay, so are there any other comments or questions on the commission's scope and responsibilities?
I have one.
Yes.
Jay had brought up being flexible with the date of meetings. Jay, I might be speaking up for you. My apologies. But you did ask if we could meet on different kinds of days, different days, not having one set day of the week. Is that still a question for you?
No, I'm fine with whatever the group decides. I was just kind of throwing that out there for discussion. So thank you.
That was it.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move past agenda item 5. We've already covered agenda item 6. So agenda item 7 is people, communities, and home investment plan overview.
All right. I am going to also jump into this because I also have the first real ask of the commission for this item, and this is a timely ask. So that is why we're focusing on this for today's first meeting, as well as we just finished the people, communities, and homes investment planning process. And Mayor Council adopted it on January 20th. And part of the idea here is to really have it be a roadmap for the department for the foreseeable future. And so I think it's a really timely way to as back up what Liz talked about in terms of what the department does. I'm not going to go through it all today. It's quite a long document, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of your function areas in the ordinance talks about the consolidated plan and the annual action plan and HUD entitlements. And I did, for those that aren't as aware, I did want to provide just a little bit of background as to what those things are. And Liz Morales, feel free to jump in here as I'm learning these things. But the consolidated plan is a 5-year planning document that is a requirement to get our federal funding through HUD. And we just updated that plan. Mayor and Council adopted that in 2020. It's posted on our website. We can send you that at any point. And that was really one of the starting points for the People, Communities, and Homes Investment Plan, the PCHIP. But so the 5-year consolidated plan requirement by the federal government, and really the plan uses a template. It's really prescribed in terms of what goes into it. And so that plan is every 5 years. Every year, HCD needs to submit an annual action plan to HUD that outlines what our budget's going to be for the next year. And so I bring all of that up because of its relationship with PCHIP and the ask that I'm going to have of commission members. Bless you. The ask I'm going to have is related to that. So we have the consolidated plan. There may be a question, why did you need to do PCHIP too? I mentioned that the consolidated plan is the template is very prescribed by HUD. With PCHIP, that is our local planning effort. We got to really think through what we wanted to include and not use the federal template. Also, the Human Services Plan traditionally includes general fund monies that mayor and council dedicate to human services, and that's not covered in the Consolidated Plan. So in addition to the Consolidated Plan, we've been doing the Human Services Plan. This time around, instead of updating the Human Services Plan, we went through the PCHIP planning process, which stands for People, Communities, and Homes. And honestly, I think it's important to point out for this group, part of that idea there was hearing the cry from the community last year, going through the budget cycle and hearing that people are really interested in funding the areas that HCD works in. So things like community programs, affordable housing, funding for persons with experiencing homelessness. We really heard a cry for funding these key areas. And so that was part of why we expanded the human services scope to include these other areas. There was this planning process kicked off in October. And as I mentioned, Mayor and Council adopted the plan on January 20th. We did as much community input, I would say, as I felt like we could within that time frame, within the restrictions that COVID unfortunately has caused. So there's been a website that houses a ton of information. We ended up having a total of 5 public meetings that were general. We had one that was focused on human services, one that was focused on affordable housing. We had a public survey, and we also included a budget tool to really help hear from the community where they wanted to, where they want us to put our money. As I mentioned, the plan is quite long, longer than I ever intended it to be. There is a nice executive summary that provides an overview. This slide here is a graphic that's really intended to summarize the whole plan. The plan's broken up into 4 sections. Section 1 is inputs, which really talks about what components went into the plan. 2 is current conditions and challenges. I'll talk more about that quickly in a sec. 3 is PCHIP priorities and goals. That's really, I mentioned a roadmap for housing and community development to look at for the next 5 years, as well as invite community partners to join us in that. We know that all of these issues are too big for the city to handle alone. And I'm also a real big believer in collaborations. And so really thinking through how to maximize the assets that Tucson has as a community. And then 4 is implementation, also getting at the ask that I'm going to have of you. Wanted to mention, one of your functions is to really look at existing data when making recommendations to mayor and council. The PCHIP current conditions and challenges section has a ton of data that I think people might be really interested in seeing. Here are just 3 charts. We looked at the different challenge areas and included a lot of data, and also really looked at trying to provide the data in ways that show disparities and really sticking to this commitment of equity. So lots and lots of data. There's also the priorities and goals sections, which is a framework. I put on this slide the priorities that were identified through the PCHIP process. In addition to these priority areas, there are goals for each priority area, and even within those goals are strategies to how to meet those goals. So it's a lot of information. It's not comprehensive. I'm sure we missed things, but the goal is to build off of that into the future. As part of our commitment with this plan, we really are trying to be more transparent. So we include a section that talks about the funding sources that our department receives and provides an overview of those funding sources. So this provides, as Liz talked about, for some of the different funding sources, how much we anticipate we'll receive each year. That's always subject to change by what happens at the federal level and the local level. And so for the current PCHIP call for projects, which we just put out, the focus right now is on the people part of this. So those top 4 funding sources. Throughout the PCHIP process, this is kind of this is a slide that that shows a summary of the whole process in terms of what we heard from stakeholders, from residents, through the data, where our funding priorities should really be for the next 5 years. I mentioned that for this call for projects, we are focused on the people part of this planning effort. And so this is information that we just put out, inviting nonprofits, community agencies to apply for funding. That is now live. People can go and start developing proposals for the funding. Here is the 4 categories of funding that we plan on including in this call for projects. So my ask, you can see in that box number right on the right, function area 5 of the commission via the ordinance is to provide recommendations on the priorities for the use of HUD entitlement programs. And so what I am asking, if commission members have the availability, we would love help scoring the proposals. And then we make the scoring committees will provide the recommendations to Liz, the director, who will then share that with mayor and council. And so in terms of what that commitment looks like, here is a timeline. There's a fairly short turnaround. So agencies need to submit their proposals by the end of this month, by February 28th. And then we're hoping that the committees that will be scoring and discussing these proposals, right now tentative dates are March 10th and 11th. And really, I would say in terms of a commitment, I would think about setting aside, if you have the availability to set aside time, I would say the week, we're going to try to turn around those applications as quickly as we can to make them available to scoring members, but then would ask though that there will likely be a fair bit of proposals. So you would have to have time that leading up to March 10th and 11th to score. Liz, is there anything there you wanted to add?
I think the time commitment is pretty hefty in those couple of weeks and then the full 2 days. So, but we don't say that to scare you off, and we just want to make sure you're prepared for that. We really do need your help with this. It's a pretty heavy load that the more people we have, the easier the load is. So please consider helping us through that process.
I think the one other thing I would add, obviously, we know that some of you work for agencies that potentially would be applying for the funds, just being mindful of that. And so we just want to make sure we avoid any sort of conflict of interest. And I don't need commitments today in terms of if you're interested or not, but I will send another email out, or Jeremiah Dean, who is on this call. Jeremiah, can you say hi real quick?
There we are. Is that on?
I hear you, but don't see you.
How about that?
There you are. Yep.
Okay, good.
Jeremiah will be helping to coordinate the committees. And so either myself or Jeremiah will send an email to commission members after this meeting, but definitely interested in having participation from this commission on those scoring committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Are there any questions on that presentation?
Jim, I just wanted to make a request from Anne to attach the presentation to the email that you're going to send to us, please.
Yes.
If some of us were able to take on a few applications to score, would we be trained in that?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, and Sharia, thank you for saying that, because one other requirement this year, given COVID and given everything, is that we're going to do everything on the computer, including accessing applications is going to be done through Zoom Grants, the portal that people are applying from. We will absolutely provide the training, but this is the first year. We don't plan on printing them out and sending them. So that's one other consideration when you're deciding if you can do it.
Can I get clarification? Is the notice of funding going to happen based on PCHIP?
Yes, and it's been publicly announced last week before. Yesterday, we held a technical session. I will put out, there is a website with a ton of information about the call for projects, and I'll make sure that people are aware of that.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 8, call to the audience. Is there anybody who has requested to speak in the audience? Okay, hearing none.
I'm sorry.
We'll move to
It took
I'm
me a
sorry.
while to unmute.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mary Ann, go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
All right. Will the city please send us the gap analysis it is sending to the commission members for the ex officios?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. Marian, we're still finishing up the gap analysis. It will be done by March. As soon as it's complete in a way where we can share, we will absolutely make sure everybody gets that.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 9, next steps. 9A is items for our future meetings, and B is a future meeting dates and times and location discussion, which we've already had. So, yes?
I'd like to make a motion for future agenda items. So for me, right off the bat, the biggest thing I really want us to be working on is more funding. How do we get more money? I mean, the budget, if we look at it, it's just like $4 million for the whole city. Like it's not enough. And I mean, Jim, I'm working on a project with you, the Light Tech projects. I mean, it's like, $8 million just for one apartment building. So, it's just, I feel like really that to me has to be the priority, and the political organizing and will that we're trying to create is getting the funding. I have a few suggestions, and whether or not we can look into these items right away or they have to be tabled for later. But at the top of my list is a bond being passed, as a temporary provision, and getting the Pima County on board as well, and that it's just a broad effort. The second would be looking at potential sales taxes. This is another way cities are funding affordable housing throughout the country. I mean, what can we do at a very local level that's long-term in the sense that probably it would be a 2 to 3 year effort, but short-term in the grand scheme of things, So that's kind of my mission. Again, my top priority and agenda is to get HCD more money, and then the political will for this to happen. And then secondly, agenda would be to it kind of in support of this is to look at what's happened historically with funding. One of the neighborhood programs we used to have was Back to Basics. What happened to that program? Why did it dissolve? This was a city funded program. How do we create something similar moving forward? So if we could get some city staff and support to really just dive into this issue, that's kind of my first thought.
Thank you. That's good. Those are good thoughts. And I share some of those sentiments as well.
Jim, how do you feel about a potential subcommittee on that issue?
I think that's a good idea. Let's get through a meeting or two and we can start to formulate some of those thoughts. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts myself on things that the city of Tucson can do to compete primarily with Maricopa County for affordable housing projects. Far and away the biggest funding source of new affordable housing projects is the low-income housing tax credit. There's 2 types of tax credits, the 9% and the 4%. And the 9% is a competitive round And there are a lot of things I think that the city can do to better compete with City of Phoenix and get a larger share of those projects down here. And so I know that there's going to be a lot of options, and there's more than one way to skin the cat on this. But I agree that that's kind of where I'm coming from as well. As I think Tucson has a lot to offer, and I want to see us compete and win, at the state level.
I'd like to make a motion for us to define some language with each other. Like Anne had mentioned, I'd like for us to specifically define equity, affordable and accessible housing, as well as some other items mentioned in the presentation. I'd also like for an agenda item in the future to be possibly a city planner to come and talk to us about zoning, because really, if we get the money for housing, where are we going to put it? Because I think it's really important for us to reduce urban sprawl as much as possible, and for us to use the land that we currently have. And so I think that possibly looking at where the city zoning options are currently is going to be really important for us, and we need a framework really right now, so that we're all kind of on the same page and at the same education level.
So just as a point of order to help me here, so Liz started that by saying she wants to make a motion. Is that something that, Liz, you're asking for us to vote on right now?
Do I need to make a motion for an agenda item?
You wanted to make a motion that we define equity, affordable, and accessible housing.
For an agenda item, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you just want an agenda item. And do we need to make motions for future agenda items, or is that something that members can request and we can just add to the agenda?
I think the latter. I think, if you want it to be formal, official, you can do a motion, but I think working with Jim, we can just add it to future agenda items.
Okay. And I agree with you. So we'll make an agenda item to create some definitions. Liz, if you want to put some thought into that in terms of what you would recommend to the group, that would be great.
One of the things that I would like to suggest, and it's kind of building off what other people are talking about, but I think we really need a common understanding of where we are with housing. I mean, when we talk about affordable housing and, talk about it in the city of Tucson, and people are like, we need tons of affordable housing. It's not affordable. If you talk to somebody from Oregon, they're like, wow, Tucson's super affordable. Where do we actually have affordable housing? How much affordable housing do we need? Some of the history of how housing has been built over the years. I just really think that, I was on the Metro Housing Commission before it kind of went defunct, and I joined, and I just never felt like there was a common understanding of where we are as a community and what we need. I mean, I think the area that it's critical to have a deeper understanding is gentrification and displacement. There's so much conversation about that. And I know there's been some more stuff about that recently, which I think is great. But, I think we need to look at it as a commission so that we're all understanding, how many people are where are people being displaced from? Where's the most pressure being felt? I just feel like it's going to be really difficult to move forward if we don't spend a lot of time in the beginning really getting our data, getting our facts together, and getting a common understanding of where we are as a community before we start talking about we need. So I don't know how that plays into an agenda item exactly, but whether that's some presentations from staff or I don't know what that looks like exactly. But
I think we can, if I may, I'm sorry, Mike, just say that we do have some recent data that we've done a couple presentations to council around those topics. And we're not the only source, of course, but we can definitely share what information we have on the trends and the current needs of housing in Tucson.
And Liz, is this
Chuck
market
Dorsey.
study that's under development right now, is that also gonna
Yeah,
provide
we
some
have,
context?
we have a couple phases complete. The final phase is the gaps analysis. And so I think all those pieces are really important, really paint an important picture.
Chuck Dorsett also is, I think, an architect and a planner in town, and he is a really great speaker on those topics.
Liz, what was his name? I didn't catch it.
Chuck Dorsett, he spoke at the summit, but he also speaks publicly on other topics.
Okay, thanks.
I just adding to that, I think that, you know, Liz, I think Liz Morales, I think it's great to, you know, have the city in particular provide information and background and data, but I also want to encourage us as a commission not to rely just city and county data. I mean, you know, there are lots of organizations around, there are national organizations, a lot of good information about what may or may not be needed. So I think there are a lot of perspectives as well that we need to pay attention to. So I want to make sure that, you know, we as a group are also bringing in other voices. And I think that also goes to potentially, you know, anecdotal evidence or, you know, stories from folks in the community as well, provide a little bit more detail and shed some more light on what it's like actually living in Tucson, looking for affordable housing, dealing with some of these issues, you know, transportation, you know, getting to work. I think, you know, understanding what people are actually going through can also help us really understand what we need to be attacking, because, you know, the data is one thing, but lived experience is another that I think is critically important to our work.
But as to the specifics, just to go back to the data, that most of this will be captured in the P-chip, right? And once that's complete, we'll have a better picture. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, P-chip is complete. Between P-chip and the housing market study, there is a lot of data from a lot of different sources.
And maybe having a clearinghouse for all of that information. I mean, we've thrown out a lot of different studies and, you know, this, that, and the other that it can get confusing. So is there a place where I mean, I know about the website, is there a place where we're able to either stuff that, you know, you guys from the city have where you can deposit it? And then also, you know, what about those of us that, you know, just in our day-to-day come across things that we may want to share with folks on the commission? Is there a place where we can, you know, deposit information, or should we email stuff to staff, or, you know, how can we also go about sharing information that we come across?
Yeah, I would say share with me and or Lauren Seamus, and we'll get it up on that website.
And
Thank you, Jay.
yeah, and just to add to that, I do think it's great. The more information and the more context we can put things into, I totally support that. And often data sometimes can be only telling one story. So I totally agree with you, Jay, about a more complete picture. So I encourage everyone to bring what they have and find a way to share that. Maybe through stories. I like the storytelling. I liked what Councilmember Santa Cruz talked about her growing up and what she experienced. So I do like that anecdotal too, as well.
Okay, any other final thoughts or comments before we adjourn? Okay, well, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Liz and Ann. Appreciate all the work you guys have put into this.
Thank you, Jim. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.